Asor Nisyonos Nisnas Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was tested with 10 tests, and he succeeded. Every one of those challenges, he succeeded. Lodia. Why is this important for us to know? To what degree Avram loved God? There's no challenge which was too great for Avram Avinu. That was his connection, and we'll discuss in a moment. What was the basis for Avram's connection to God? Now, there's a concept known as reciprocation. Somebody does you a favor, and you appreciate the favor. A person who's a quality person naturally reciprocates. It's almost natural. Doesn't have to think about it. Because if I appreciate what you did for me, and I feel I'm a beneficiary of your service or gift or whatever it may be, I reciprocate. If a person values his life to the nth degree, and he has a family, he has a wife, and somebody saves his life, besides being alive, what is the value of saving that person's life, the one who is the beneficiary of his life being saved? And he has small children. Because he was saved, he understands now he can be a father to raise his children and to give whatever's needed for his children to grow up normally and to be that dedicated husband and eventually see his children grown and see grandchildren. So if you really look at what is the innate value of saving his life, it's not just being alive. If people being alive, their lives don't have much value because what do they do with their lives? But a person whose life truly has value, not only just being alive, but in terms of what he's provided with because of that life, what he's able to provide, the value to him has greater value. Now we could have children. Now we could raise children. Now we could be that husband. Now we can help others. But it's only if you see the value of life are you more appreciative. The more you see yourself outside of yourself, let's say a person's totally selfish and he lives in his own little cocoon. Life is that I should be able to indulge and be a hedonist. In his mind, it may be sick, totally off. But for him, that's the whole purpose of life. Just to keep gouging yourself in accumulation of material. That's all it is. But a person who's in that context, what does he seek? That person will not reciprocate. You know why? Because he himself only lives for himself. So the concept of appreciation to a third party has no relevance. But a person, he values himself because what he can do for others, that means he sees outside of himself. If you see outside of yourself, that person has relevance of reciprocation because of what he sees outside of himself, the value of that. It tells us in Sanhedrin that when witnesses would come to testify in a capital case, where if the verdict is guilty, the person's life is taken, they tell the witnesses in advance, before they start interrogating them, do you realize the ramifications of your testimony? The ramification is that if you truly believe that what you saw is accurate, and it's beyond any doubt that that person is the guilty party, what's going to happen is that person's life is going to be taken. What is the value of a life? And they explain, and they quote a verse in the Torah. God originally created Adam as a single person. Every other living species had a counterpart. There was a male and a female. Adam had no counterpart. Why? Adam had a level of clarity when he was created, before he partook of the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge. He had a level of clarity almost on an absolute level. He saw from one end of the world to the other. He saw the value of every aspect of this creation, its potential. And he asked himself a question. I'm one individual, one lone individual. And God created this world which borders on the infinite. What does it say what my value is? That my value borders on the infinite. If I need a whole world and I'm the only intellectual being who has a soul, because the others are only living creatures and they have no value other than accommodating me, what is my value? My value is not to be believed. It's unfathomable what my value is. So the Sanhedrin, who accepts this testimony, tells the witnesses, you understand the value of one individual. Saving a life is like saving a whole world, because God initially created a whole world, because you need a whole world to accommodate and address the potential of a human being. This is what the court tells them. Therefore, if you have any doubts, just withdraw the testimony. Don't testify. Disqualify yourself. Recluse yourself. That's what they tell them. Avraham Avinu, the founding patriarch of Jewish people, was born into a pagan world. There was no trace of God in this world, but he was a smart man. And he did an analysis, and he looks at the world, and he starts asking questions, and he engages with the most intellectual people, all the theologians, everybody in the world, and he has many questions. If you ask an appropriate question, a right question, you do a proper analysis, it leads you to an answer. And if your analysis is accurate, if the answer is not appropriate, it doesn't answer the question. And he did such an exact analysis, whatever he heard wasn't the answer to his question. There's another answer. He didn't have the answer. There's another answer. This world is a world that provides something which is not to be believed. There's nothing in this world, it goes beyond human capacity. Who created this world? Who provided this amenity? This accommodation for me to be able to rise at a level which is beyond human capacity? Why did he want to know? Because if I'm a beneficiary of whoever that benefactor is, I want to know who he is. Because I owe him my existence, because if not for him, I wouldn't exist. So what drove Avraham Avinu was his debt of gratitude, his need to reciprocate or to express his appreciation and dedication to providing everything to him, which is beyond description, whatever he can accomplish now. That's what drove Avraham Avinu. If a person is raised by a parent, and your parent is the most loving, understanding parent and provides everything within a normal context, but quality education, quality upbringing, everything quality, and you become a special human being, and you want one of the most special human beings, and you attribute everything to your parents. What is the basis for the love to your parent? Because your parent provided everything for you, and you appreciate everything you provided. There's nothing you won't do for that parent. Nothing. Because whatever you are, you're only because what your parent actually invested in you, what they provided for you. There's nothing too difficult. Avraham Avinu understanding who God is, that he's the provider, he's the benefactor. There's no challenge that's too difficult. Even means to go into the fire and die. Even means to behave in a way where the world sees me as I'm unstable. I'll go into the jaws of a lion and have my head chopped off. For God. The world says, who's God? Doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. But if you Avraham Avinu would understand what Avraham understands who God is to him, there's nothing Avraham wouldn't do for God. Therefore, no challenge is too difficult. So he was able to withstand the 10 tests, the 10 challenges, which we'll discuss. But why is it important for us to know? Avraham, to reveal and make known the love Avraham had to God. Because without that level of love, he couldn't achieve what he achieved. That was the fire in his belly that drove him to do God's will. I'll give you an example. Somebody provides something for someone, everything, puts a golden crown on it, diamond studded. And the person feels, it's true, you gave me all that. But you know something? I could sit in the creek in Mississippi smoking a corncob pipe with a fishing rod and sit there for the rest of my life. I don't need all this other stuff. All this other stuff is all excess. Could this person have an appreciation for the true value of whatever he was provided with? He acknowledged it's special. It's special if you're interested. But if you're not interested, it's not special. So what did you do for me? You did nothing for me. You overloaded me with all this stuff, which I don't see its value because I could live without it. That person is not going to be appreciative. That person is not going to go through fire and water for the person who provided all that. Because all that has no relevance to his life. But if you see all that, every aspect that's provided has relevance to your life, and you are what you are, and you could actually address and meet your potential because of that, and you see that's the ultimate, then your level of beholdingness and your debt is beyond imagination. How in debt you feel to your benefactor. Torah tells us that Hashem is Avi HaYisomim. God is the father of orphans, and he takes care of widows. And God openly says it through Moshe Rabbeinu. A child is orphaned as a young child, doesn't have a mother, doesn't have a father. God says, I will be the provider. I'll be responsible. And you really have that belief. Now, God doesn't renege on his word. God is there, fully invested. And you believe that, even though the orphan has challenges. But ultimately, if you have trust, somehow it's going to work out. You could have the best parents in the world. Life doesn't always work out. Working out doesn't mean to say, doesn't reflect on your parents that your parents failed. They can only put you in a setting that you're capable to take advantage of opportunity. But how God plays out that deck, everybody has his own situation. You never know how that plays out. So Hashem being Avi Yisomim, being the father of orphans, and takes care of widows, even if that child has challenges, those challenges, we don't understand why. But that's no less than the challenge that a child must have, even when he has parents raising. People have challenges. And they have challenges they can't deal with. And it's unrelated to the parents raising that child. It's the predicament. Because God wanted that person to be put in that position to have difficulty, complication in his life. Or to have just the contrary. Have conveniences, have opportunities. That things shouldn't go with difficulty. You think, there are no atheists in the foxhole. When you're in that foxhole, I don't care what kind of real estate portfolio you have, how much money you have in the bank. You could be Bill Gates and Bezos combined. When you're in that foxhole, it means nothing. Nothing means anything. Well, because at that moment, who's going to determine whether you live or die? It's God. So a person automatically, once you strip away all the nonsense and you strip down to the bone, what's left? You little measly nobody. So when you see yourself as the measly nobody, and you understand God is going to make the determination whether you live or die, then you see God as what? As the most glorious, the omnipotent one, because he's going to make a difference whether you live or die. But unfortunately, people have short memories. When you come out of that foxhole, you're back to your old nonsense. You call your banker, private banker. Call Bob. He'll tell you about whatever it is, your annuities, how they're doing. Are they going to expire? Call Larry, will tell you what happened 45 years on Wall Street, years ago. The people who he quotes, people don't even remember they ever existed. Or they were makers and shakers in those days. It means nothing today. Nothing means anything. But a person who, he says, it's very interesting. Avram was one of the most humble persons who ever lived. What is a person who's humble? Person's humble, who's truly humble. The person's not meek and he's a fool. It's because he understands who he is. He's beholden to no one. He doesn't have to play up to anyone. And whatever he has, he understands it's God-given, it's unrelated to him. And whatever he accomplishes, that's what he's meant to accomplish. So what am I going to boast about? If you breathe so many breaths an hour, a minute, and you have so many heartbeats, are you proud? That's natural. That's a natural function. God created you to function in a certain capacity, and you do. But I'm going to take credit for it. Other people don't eat 3 meals a day, and they're malnourished. I do. You pride yourself that you're not malnourished. You're living like a healthy human being. You don't pride yourself that you don't act irresponsible. A person works for a company. Comes to bonus time. Person says, I think I deserve a bonus. So the employee says, why? Because I could have stolen and I didn't steal. Therefore, I think I deserve a bonus. I mean, you think you deserve one for not stealing? You're not supposed to steal. You get bonus for doing something out of the ordinary. Not doing criminal, being like a criminal, that's not deserving of a bonus. That's who you're supposed to be. A person who sees it right, he's humble because whatever he accomplishes, because that's what he's supposed to be doing. And he's not intimidated by others. I know my life has purpose, has value. You know why? Because I'm doing what I'm doing. You're worth 1 trillion times what I'm worth. Therefore what? Has nothing to do with me. You're smarter than I am. Therefore what? I know who I am. You're you and I'm me. I do what I want. I know I'm doing okay. Because whatever I'm supposed to be doing, I'm doing. And that's reality. But we're not talking about, these are words. This is a full reality of what a person feels and internalizes his own reality. People live fictions. They delude themselves. But we're not deluding ourselves. The whole world rejects Judaism. But we have a tradition. God says this is what it's about. The world disagrees with God, that's their problem. But I know I'm towing the right line. Give you an example. You go into a war zone. So you need a military person to be able to go with you, to advise you how to survive that war zone. And he tells you, and every bit of advice is invaluable. And you have another person. Bill Gates. You take him into the war zone. Well, he could write any check. He could buy any piece of, any armament. But it's not going to help you when you're in a war zone. You have to have the weaponry and you have to have the know-how. So if you have the weaponry, the person being with you has the know-how, you're in a good place. But I wish I was Bill Gates. Yeah. If you have everything else, having that kind of money can't hurt if you use it right. We're in a war zone. Life is a war zone. It's challenges. Person says, I don't think I'm in a war zone. I live high in the hog. I do what I want. I live like a hedonist. Why? Because if you only understood what you're doing to yourself, that mountain's going to collapse someday, and you're going to go into the oblivion. So you're living a fiction. You're living a mirage. The other person is not living a mirage, because we have what we call miso. We have tradition. This is the real thing. We have the real deal. Nobody values it. Doesn't make a difference whether you value that. But we have the real deal. And we have the weaponry. to be able to meet challenges. Why is that the weaponry? Because God said so at Sinai. When he took us as a Jewish people, he says, you follow my dictate, I'm with you. There's no challenge you can't withstand. There's no predicament that you can't deal with, even if it means dying. Because if you die for me, then you've accomplished your purpose in life. Because life is doing my will, whatever my will may be. Many years ago, this person's mother passed away, and I paid a shiva visit. His mother was a complicated woman. And because she was so complicated, the son had to go into therapy as a married man. And he didn't realize how complicated his life was until he had to deal with a wife, children. It wasn't simple. And then his mother finally passed away. And his mother did tremendous things for him, but simultaneously, he had many handicaps, emotional, mental handicaps, because the way he was raised by his mother. And I said to him, everybody's parent, who pairs up a child with a parent? Who's what we call the shadchan? Who's the matchmaker? God's the matchmaker. It's just not random. You have this parent, that person, that parent. In terms of addressing your life, each of us, we're given the parent, that parent creates a persona, a psychological profile, whatever it is. But that all goes into your purpose. You have to dress, you have to deal with all these challenges. That's what your life is all about. But somebody has it easier. Doesn't make a difference. Person's born rich, person's born poor, person's born phenomenally intelligent, high IQ, average IQ. It's not fair. There's no such thing. It's not fair. God knows exactly what he's doing. So when God pairs up the child with the parent, whatever that parent is, good, bad, or worse, doesn't make a difference. But you have the ability to make right decisions, despite the difficulty. And that's what challenges are all about. And if you meet the challenge despite that, your accomplishment is even greater.
Thanks, Rabbi. That was good.